cut out for us to form a model company. Once these men are properly trained, they will then be utilized to teach others in this new manual of arms that the general is going to prepare. We're going to see a volley from them, and we will allow them to take some ease on themselves. We, on the other hand, will be back here at 2 o'clock. We will meet just behind you here in front of the enlistment tent. We will do an inspection of the camp. We will walk through it, we will look at the other half of the army, the other half that is not nearly so glorious, but is, in fact, frankly, much more important.
And so, von Steuben would continue to drill the Army and make the stepping stones for it to be a renowned, disciplined force. And no army would be complete without its Dragoons.
Hey, how are you?
Huzzah!
Oh, hey!
Hey!
Good to see you. Hey, son. Good to see you. Late.
Test 1, 2. Great! Welcome back to Mount Vernon. If you'd like to stay for this next part, we're going to talk about how the Army today is related to George Washington's Army 250 years ago. So this will be for audience participation. I don't think my horse has ever been around a microphone on his back, but he's doing a great job. So anyway, what we're going to talk about is the Army today and how it's connected with George Washington. So my first question will be this. What do you think we would do on horseback in those days that are common to the Army branches today? Does anybody have any guesses? The Army branches of today?
Tanks.
What's that?
Tanks.
Tanks. She said tanks. So the armor branch. The armor branch of the Army today, yes, indeed, is linked back to the Dragoons of the American Revolution. Let me walk down here so I can make sure those people know that same thing. So the Dragoons of the Revolution were the shock troops. They were the cavalry. But tanks today, or the armor branch of the Army, traces their lineage directly back to the American Revolution and to George Washington's cavalry. Any other guesses? That was a really good one. Military police, he said. If you agree with that, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you agree. Military police? Wait, come on. One guy? 2 people? 3 people? All right, that's exactly right. And tell us out in your big outside voice, how are military police of today related to George Washington's guys on horseback? They're responsible for policing the force, and indeed, he's exactly right. If you go to the U.S. Army Military Police Museum in Fort Leavenworth, in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, you'll see a guy dressed just like we are almost, on horseback, because, as he said, they would provide not only POW security, but they would also patrol and secure the Army's locations, the wagons, everything the military police do today. So we've got armor, military police. Anybody else have any guesses? What's that? Artillery. And how are artillery for George Washington's day related to today? Horse-drawn artillery, that's right. Does anybody know when did the U.S. Army get rid of the horses in the artillery? Any guesses? How about raise your hand if you think it was 1870? You think 1870? How about you think 1910? Raise your hand. Okay, you're close. How many do you think they didn't get rid of the artillery horses till 1940? Yeah, that's exactly right. So at the same time they were bringing tanks into the Army, they were also getting rid of the horse artillery and turning into the self-propelled artillery. So what's one other branch? Does anybody know another branch that's related to today's Army that may be related to George Washington's Army? Any of the guesses?
Reconnaissance.
Logistics, absolutely. Logistics is a good guess. So the Transportation Corps Logistics. So this horse's name is Batman. So it's not the superhero Batman, but in George Washington's day, a horse that would carry the baggage that would serve logistics was called the Bat Horse, and the person riding him or guiding him would be known as the Batman. way before Batman was cool, the Army had Batmen and horses that were Bat horses. And there's two other branches I want to point out. What do you think, sir? Space Force. That's a cool answer, and I'm sure there's some connection. I just don't know what the Space Force connection is, but I'm glad you're thinking about that way. The two I want to point out, first one is the military intelligence today. So we think of the National Security Agency, we think of the Defense Intelligence Agency, we think of the CIA. All of those organizations had their start back in George Washington's horse troops back in the Revolutionary War, because they would actively go out, collect information, and then come back and report the information to make sure George Washington had the most accurate information he could have. So all three of those parts of today's intelligence community and the U.S. Army Intelligence Corps all trace their lineage back to the guys who were dressed up like we were back in the Revolutionary War. I'm going to turn it over to Walter, and he's going to talk to you about a couple other aspects of George Washington's Army that are still alive in the Army today, including one special branch that I didn't mention.
Before I ask that, though, I'm going to ask one question. Which came first, the United States Army or the United States of America?
Army!
The United States Army was initiated 250 years ago today. This very day, we are a quarter of a millennium.
Whoa!
And the very first commander of that army was a gentleman who lived in that house up across the field. General George Washington was given that commission as a commander 250 years ago tomorrow. But if you remember, our independence was not declared until 1776, 249 years ago. So the point of that story is the Army was here before the country, and as long as our Army is in the field, our country will be just fine.
Amen, brother.
Now, as you can see, Colonel Underwood and I might be a little biased on this concept, but that's all right. He spent 25 years as an intel officer, so he talked about the use of a horse in the intelligence and messaging and spy business. I spent my life as a Green Beret. And Washington was intimately involved in unconventional warfare that nobody even knew about. He had horses, he knew the lay of the land, and he had the indigenous support, so he could get information faster. He could make the enemy think things that he wanted them to, and he could do that because of his reliance and expertise on this animal called the horse. Incidentally, his favorite horse was a horse named Nelson. The horse I'm riding today is named Nelson. Some of the kids asked me earlier, is it the same horse? And my answer was, of course, dear, it's the same horse. The governor of Virginia was named Nelson. He gave his good friend George Washington this horse, right before the war. Washington rode Nelson throughout the war. Nelson came home without a scratch, which is pretty impressive when you think about it. And then Nelson and General Washington retired right here at Mount Vernon. Nelson lived in the stable where we're doing our demonstration throughout the day, and he ate in this pasture right here 250, not quite 50 years ago. So we're happy to be here to represent our history. It's not that far ago, not that long ago, a quarter of a millennium. It's a big number. There's no guarantee that we're going to make the next quarter of a millennium, but we will with courageous young Americans like some of the ones we see here.
Woo!
So one of the things that George Washington did before the war, one of his passions that paid huge big dividends, was that he was a passionate fox hunter. So right here at Mount Vernon, he and his friends would take and unkennel maybe 20 or 30 foxhounds, and they'd put their nose to the ground and they'd chase foxes all over this country. And that allowed George Washington to really master the art of riding like your tail's on fire, running through the woods, over creeks, over fences, over trees, over whatever to get somewhere. So he used that same skill while developing the first American Army cavalry. And that skill, that bold, audacious, hell-bent for leather skill that he learned while fox hunting and he mastered and he spread to the rest of the Army, was hugely beneficial in our quest for this thing that we call freedom, which at the time was an original concept. And we first, more than any other country, initiated this experiment, this social experiment of democracy, where everybody is of same value, of equal worth. And lo and behold, that experiment proved to be true, and the rest of the world is trying to copy it.
Thank you very much. What we'd like you to do, we'd like to give you the opportunity to do an original thing here. If you'll line up on the fence line right here, and everybody knows how to give a horse high five, right? Everybody knows how to give a high five. How to give a high five. All right, so we're going to start at that end down there, and we're going to teach you what George Washington used to do. I don't know if he really did it, but it's pretty cool. So if you'll give us a horse high five, you'll line up on this fence line, and we're going to come down here, and we're going to do a horse high five for everybody to say thank you very much for coming to Mount Vernon. If you'd like to water these horses or saddle these horses at 1 o'clock at the stables, which is straight down this road, we'll help you, we'll allow you to put the saddles on them, put all the equipment on them, and you'll help us water these horses and keep them ready for action the rest of the day. And you'll get the same horse sweat and horse slobber. Think about that. The same exact feeling and smell that George Washington got every day. We'll do that at the end of the day today. So please come join us down at the stables at 12:45 and 1 o'clock.
Got two questions from the Navy here. Yes,
Two
sir.
questions from the Navy.
Nathaniel Green, Washington's intel.
Nathaniel Green served as the quartermaster of the Continental Army, and he was a general and ran a lot of operations, but he wasn't specifically intel. He was a quartermaster and then became a field commander later in the war. But a great general who understood the strategic concept of, if I don't get beat, we can still continue to function. If I get annihilated, then the country will cease to exist. Just like Colonel Hurd said, the Army was the nation for many years. And so during the Revolutionary War, as long as the Army was in the field, and Nathaniel Green knew that, we could still have a country one day. So, all right, if you'll line up there, we're going to go to the distant end, and we'll give you a horse high five. But thank you again for coming out to Mount Vernon today. It's a beautiful day to celebrate the Army and George Washington taking over as Commander-in-Chief.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Meanwhile, they're priming their cannons. We're going to get a firing demonstration. First, let's do horseman's high five. We've heard of a horseman's handshake, never had a horseman's high five.
Happy birthday. Good job.
Happy birthday. Woo!
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Thank you.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. I wonder if he's speaking.
That's cool.
I mean, yeah, they're gonna get him over the hill.
Yeah. We haven't missed one while we're in the very first. Welcome to Mount Vernon, everyone. So this is two units here. We have the 8th Pennsylvania and the 1st Virginia Artillery here. We're the first, the closest gun, and the 8th is the next few guns out there. We want to welcome them for coming down from Pennsylvania. Has anyone shot artillery before in the Army? One guy, one's Army celebration, then we got two. So you know you're called redlegs, right? So where did that come from? Does anyone know where the term redlegs comes from? Anyone? Well, that's a historic color for the artillery. So you'll see we have a little red ribbon. They actually wore red breeches early on in the war, but later in the war when it got warmer, they figured it out. They started wearing more linen and ribbon shirts. And there is an order for us not to wear our coats, so today it's really hot. So we have taken our coats off, or most of us have taken our coats off. And so we're going to survive this heat. Let's go through the drill real first.
on our gun, unfortunately, we had a misfire to start off with, so we're waiting for it to cool down. So the first thing that happens is you have someone with a vent pit, okay? He's called the bombardier, and if you look down the line, he's going to be the guy standing behind the man. Chuck, can you hold up the worm? Chuck, he's not listening. Hold up the worm. So that's a worm, okay? And that's going to go in there, and that's going to take out any of the pieces that are in there. Now, they would use wool or linen. We're using aluminum, but either way, you've got to get that obstruction out. So he's going to pull that out, and then our sponge guy is going to go in. And normally we would demonstrate this, but we have a round in there, so we don't want to go in there. But that's the sponger, and it's dipped in water. Now, what do you think puts out the fire in the back of the cannon? The water or something else? He says water. Anyone else? It's water from Jersey. Anyone else? Well, it's actually not the water. Okay, the water cools the barrel, but when he puts his sponge in and pulls it out, it creates a vacuum. You hear a loud pop usually.
Alright, finished with Justin. What I'm gonna do now, there's some music playing, I'm gonna go ahead and head to the stables to see Al and his horses.
Love it.
All right, onward now to the stables. So now as they're peeling back, you can see some of the original woodwork and painting of the original buildings here. So I'm heading down to the stables now because Al Underwood and his his crew, his little crew there for today. They're so cool with their demos. They're gonna give a public what sounded like a saddling demonstration. And this is George Washington's original stables, where we're headed. So Nelson, Blueskin, some of Washington's most famous horses were kept here on this very property.
Oh, what a nice breeze.
You guys want to stay for the scouting team? Putting it right along.
There you go. Okay. Now we take this. Off with Okay, so Ian needs the horse. Okay, so the bridle set, the reins are set. The last thing you need to do is tighten up the girth. So what we're going to do is,
What sector did you have?
but you don't want it loose, because if it's loose, when you get on it, then it gets loose. So we're going to untack him, and then we're going to give them an hour off. They've been working hard all day. So let's untack this, you untack the other side. You go this side, you this side.
As soon as you get him untacked, you're going to take them and just let them brace here for me. And we'll set up for the game. Woohoo!
Okay, you're going to help with the saddle. Put your left hand here, your right hand here. Pull it down, put it over the fence post. Okay, one more volunteer. If you'll take this and put it next to that green side.
Yep, you just throw it right over the post. So that it kind of looks like that one. Not bad.
And then put it on the fence post on the far left.
So cute. Hiya. Oh, sleepy Batman. Hi, sugar. Gonna go eat?
Eat your grass.
Okay, so we'll see what other talk they're gonna give here pretty soon. They just did a saddling and attacking and untacking demonstration for the kitties. Let's check out these stables. Because as said, these are Washington stables. Now at some point, I believe it was in the 1780s, I'm gonna put the right number up here. It was burnt down, but they did rebuild it, and this is as original to that time as it can be. Here again, not unlike at Stratford, these are those open stalls. Just imagine Nelson and other such horses, carriage horses, riding saddle horses, were kept here.
Fox hunting up to 2-3 times a week.
And this is the archaeology happening right now. All around the estate, at least here at the mansion and here at the stables, they are uncovering, digging, and doing more historical research. say hi to the horses one more time. So here's tack. So this is definitely something for, this looks like a bolted box, and that's what it is. So this is a cartridge belt, cartridge box. Open it up. You've got all the instruments that you need to fire your carbine or pistol. Because as Dragoons, they weren't using muskets, they were using carbines or pistols, if they had them.
All right, you guys got stabbed for George Washington.
18th century saddle. Really, it's a long skirted English saddle. Almost fairly more close to a dressage saddle, really. 18th century tack. Here's the pistol holsters. See that waterproof bear spur? And then inside, open it up, that's where the pistols would go. Saddle blankets. This is the other one. I'm gonna scoot this over here. Same thing. Now this is a real 18th century period looking saddle. I love it. You can see the cantle comes up nice and... Hi, baby. Well, that's where it's the most tasty. Isn't it, Batman? I love you. You're so handsome. You look so good. Actually, that's a great picture. Oh. Big boy. Yum, 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 yum. Portmanteau. I'm gonna have to end up making myself one of those. This is the other, I'm just gonna scoop this over here because it's sweaty. All right, and this is period tack. Wow. Is he some kind of walker? Oh, I love his conformation. So you can see how saddles were more designed back then. Girth. Or cinch, I should say. Okay, speaking of carbine, it looks like they have one right here, wrapped up. So these Dragoons have everything they're going to need to scout for George Washington. So along with the stables, there are also places to house the carriages as well, because of course that's how you transported back then. You need a place to store them. Here's another carriage house that houses the Washington riding chair. Now the riding chair is very interesting. It is as it sounds. It is a chair on top of a buggy. Again, I'm gonna remember that. Cavalry stand-up is how many?
40 miles a day. They dismount and walk for 15 minutes. They mount and walk the horse for 15 minutes. They trot 15 minutes and canter 15 minutes, and then do it again for the next hour.
And this was their fitness?
No, that's how they got from point A to point B while fighting the Indians. 40 miles a day, after 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 day.
Wow.
For weeks and months on end.
Did not know that.
So, you know, a horse can do more than 40 miles a day.
Yeah.
But a conditioning horse can do 40 miles a day pretty much every day.
Fantastic.
So thought the U.S. cavalry in the 1860s, 70s.
That's right. All right. So this is George Washington's distillery. It was built in the 1790s. Really, 1797 is when the first brick was laid. So the last couple years of George Washington's life, he had a frugal business in the distillery. Now, even more than the distillery, what I love is George Washington's mill, and it is also on the original site. So this is going to wrap up my day celebrating the Army's birthday, the 250th. I'm going to finish off here by taking a tour of said mill, which is running today. It is beautiful. So thank you for all my servicemen and women out there. Thank you for your service. And for the past 250 years, I want to thank every soldier who made the sacrifice of his or her time and even his or her life. So God bless, huzzah, God love our men and women in uniform. And long life to the United States Army.